Воно буде записуватися.
Ага. Я нічого не знаю.
Назар, може я почну, скажу вже щось?
Да, починай.
Так?
Уже йде.
Окей. Всім доброго дня. Мене звати Аліна і я вітаю вас на фінальному виступі третього потоку TED Club. Зазвичай я розповідаю про те, як плідно та важко ми працювали весь цей час, аби перетворити одну маленьку ідею в 10-хвилинний емоційний живий спіч. Але сьогодні мені б хотілося поговорити про інше. Насправді, мало хто замислюється, що за кожною історією, за кожною розповіддю знаходиться історія людини. І я хочу сьогодні заакцентувати на цьому увагу, адже в одній з цих історій кожен може пізнати себе. Цього разу наші заняття проходили в онлайн-форматі. І хоча це відрізняється від того, що ми робили зазвичай, ми все ж таки впоралися з цим завданням. І знову ж таки, цього разу нам довелося безліч разів переписувати наші сценарії, аби зробити їх емоційними, живими та цікавими для аудиторії. Нам доводилося проводити купу репетицій в форматі онлайн задля того, щоб наш TED, третій TED, був ще крутішим, ніж перший та другий. І в цьому році мені, як ментору TED Club, було дещо легше, адже цього разу я працювала з дітьми не одна, мені допомагала моя учениця з минулих 2 TED-ів Юлія Мельничук. І сьогодні вона поділиться власним досвідом, як їй було працювати з тедівцями в цьому році.
Всім привіт! Мене звати Юля, і я брала участь у найпершому TED Club, де я була однією. Зараз нас біля 20 людей, які цього року починали TED Club, третій TED Club. І я дуже рада бути ментором і поділитися своїм досвідом з учасниками. Я надію, що їхні історії надихнуть вас не тільки просто робити щось круте, а просто змінювати світ навіть у маленьких масштабах.
Хто перший? Ти виходь поки що. Виходь. Тільки 5 секунд зараз. Постій, щоб поготувся. Я зараз буду.
So first thing, hello, and now I'll tell you about video games for a while. Well, I shall start. In times when people spend most of their lives at home, like due to quarantine or just permanent will to stay inside, they entertain themselves in their own way. Fortunately, industries in different spheres are doing a great job, like books, films, video games. All these things are actually can easily fade away any reason not to stay at home. By the way, about video games. Nowadays, they're entering our lives more actively, and judging by amount of money invested in this industry, we can assume that really soon it will become a new art form, like books or films. And contrary to many opinions, games are not just a way of entertainment. They also can allow and motivate you to self-improvement in various areas. And now for more details. I will start from example. In the 6th grade, I was initially sent to the second group by English knowledge. But when last had started, I was really surprised by how many phrases and words I know. And what's my secret? Video games. It's not a surprise for anyone, but video games are mostly made in English-speaking countries, and they can require a really high level of English knowledge, or they can provide it, as it happened with me. Imagine, almost 30% of my English was learned playing video games. And yes, someone can say like, oh, now it's clear why your English is so horrible, but this argument will lose all weight if I remind that such a huge part of my English was learned just while I was playing and having fun. That's a really underestimated moment. Yeah, nowadays people use it to exaggerate and go into extremes, and they forget that far not every game is just a violent shooting range or cartoon-like games for children. And if we try to disengage from these two types, we can find enormous amounts of games that can be useful, helpful, or just interesting for you. It can be either some geographical or historically truthful adventure. For example, some guys from New York managed to find the streets they needed in New York using the map from Spider-Man. I think it's kind of amazing. Am I done? No. There are also copious amount of some simulators like flight simulator, farming simulators that can teach you some things that are actually exist in our life. For example, flight simulator. It has thousands of real airports and real cities, and you can visit all of them. And yeah, to be fair, they won't make you a professional pilot or farmer. They will give you a push, give you an interest to be motivated to learn in the future. So that's it. And games can debuff your anger, they can motivate you, as I said, and sometimes they can make you feel not a teacher, student, office worker, but a hero who is going to save the universe, the bad guy who's going to destroy it, or the natural spectator who will play the role that was given by destiny in the right moment. And everything happens inside your room without any influence on surrounding. I think that's kind of amazing. And now let's start with the moments that can be really fateful in the moments where adults try to push video games from their lives or from lives of their children. And the first one is really popular. Video games cause violence. Yeah, if child get beaten by family, bullied at school, sure thing, if he does something wrong in video game, he becomes violent and dangerous for society. Children can become violent if surrounding is violent. So, as I mentioned before, if parents can just normally explain that everything that happens on screen is bad and shouldn't be repeated, is not actually a fault of video game developers or children. And let's talk about violence itself. We, humans from the early times, loved to watch violent acts. Of course, if they're not dangerous for our lives. Gladiators fights, boxing, slasher movies, and now video games. So they're not just a source of violence, they're like a catalyst. Shall keep the same shall keep the same, but everything that surrounds is changing. And the second thing is really controversial because it can be happening in some families and some not. But for example, if you're like 10 years old, you're trying to buy a console, asking your mom, and she says, no, you're too young for it, I won't buy it to you. But you wait, 20 years had passed, and you finally managed to afford PlayStation, Xbox, or another gaming platform, doesn't matter. And wife or girlfriend, or still mom, just says, oh, no, it's for children, don't buy it. Seriously, I'm sorry, where did I lost a week of my life when I could play it? Huh? Well, so what is the age of video games? There is no age. Okay, to be fair, there are some age restrictions. It's not like that to let 10 years old to play like games about gangsters, but if you're 20, 30, 40, it's no reasons not to play video games. You can do it, why not? Try something unknown and don't be afraid of this, because only the unknown scares, but when a person has already faced it face to face, it ceases to be an unknown. Quotation by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Thank you.
Хто далі? Тільки перестав трохи світло. Треба, щоб його було видно на камеру. Є кращий варіант. Хоча, я не знаю, треба ще цю камеру посунути. Щоб хтось допоміг стіл пересунути. Давай стіл пересунути тобі. Давайте трошки туди на себе і на сторону. Бокс просто сліпить трансляцію. Давай я пробую. Давай. Буквально на упор до крісла. Уже його майже не видно. Да, нормально. Все, супер. Теоретично має бути нормально тепер. Де воно там? Це все нормально, але десь вже не можна. Давай, ты думаешь, проще через нас. Я просто отправлю. Я пройду через через футболку. Правда, я пришел коды и там уехал. Хорошо, ну, там скоро есть. И все проводим. И проводим холодно. Не так, щоб. Скажи щось.
So, how often have you heard about somebody saying, if you don't study, you're going to be a street cleaner? Or, do you want to be an artist? Or you're not going to earn enough to raise a family? But have you ever thought about what does people feel when they hear a word like that? What does a street cleaner feel when you throw the rubbish on the ground while he is cleaning it not only for himself, but for others too? What does your school teacher feel when you were looking at your phone instead of listening to her? As a kid, I wanted to become an artist, but in response I heard that this is a job without a future. I think many of us dreamed of such a profession, an artist, singer, maybe an actor, but changed our minds because these words of adults, who told us to choose a job with the good prospects. By the way, have you ever thought about why do all our fingers have a different length? My grandfather used to say that they are all different because each of them has its own function. You cannot change it. If all the fingers fulfill their purpose, the hand works fine. Just try to hold a pen. You need the support of 3 fingers. But if you put away even one of them, the pen falls. That is why they are all important. So let's imagine that our what is the hand. Then why they are important and unimportant. Respectful and disrespectful professions. As many people think, some jobs will bring shame to your family. But let me tell you one story. One day, I was watching TV, and one particular comment by a host of a program caught my attention. The host said that you can judge the type by a man by the way he treats a waiter. I was reminded of an encounter I had at a food court some time ago when I ordered my food and looked around for a cozy spot. As I sat there, I noticed a few cleaners cleaning the bowls left by the lunch crowd. One cleaner came to take my tray away. He was an ordinary man who, like us, had a family, who, like us, had a favorite hobby and even a color. A man who had, like us, ups and downs. A week later, it was the same ritual of ordering my food and looking for an empty table. I ate my food and the same cleaner came to take my tray away. So I looked at him, smiled, and thanked him. A couple of days later, I went to the same place. I ordered my food and I saw a man waving at me from afar. He was indicating that there was a free table. It was a waiter. I felt so inspired of the simple gesture of a stranger whom I had done nothing for except smiled at and said thank you to. That day, I learned a valuable lesson about the respect for another human being. Doesn't matter who a person is and what kind of job he does. He deserves respect and recognition. We always forget that a simple smile or even friendly eye contact can communicate all the positive emotions we have. These are basic things we have been taught since young. We are all human, and we are all working to support our lives. Of course, some of these jobs are a little bit harder to do, but none of them deserves to be disrespected. Imagine a world where everyone is given equal respect. Imagine everyone being happy in any job they have. The work quality will increase. Results will improve. World will flourish. Wouldn't that be better? So what we have to do for this world? First, remember that firstly we meet a person, not his profession. The street cleaner is a dirty job, but don't treat them like a trash. Respecting another profession doesn't mean you have to do it or like it. We are all working to survive and also trying to do something better. Also, we know that every work requires a lot of hard job and effort, so we should respect it all. We need to change our mindset. Doctor, lawyer, accountant may be key professions that sustain life, but so are waitress, cooks, and farmers. It's time that these people are given due respect. Stop this culture of shaming people because of their work. Stop this culture of not saying thank you to. For you, it's just some words, but for another person it is motivation. It is encouraging. It is a sign that his or her work is important. After all, we all want our streets to be clean, our cities to be safe, and our food to taste great. This is not a simple issue, but a multitude of problems that we need to tackle, such as giving people a decent wage, motivating people to claim their dreams, encouraging people to do different jobs and understand it, that we are all on this planet to live in peace and harmony. I'm going to end my speech with one simple request. Start with yourself. For the next 3 days, try to be more polite with waiter. Wish a good day to the cashier. And finally, listen to your teacher's lesson to the end. Try to be a rainbow in someone's cloud. This is your contribution to changing the world. Thank you.
Трошки праворуч на кладе на третьому. Де на третьому вже стало? Якщо відсунути, там немає сенсу. Окей. Вийшли там. Добре. Ну там мені стане, що ти там станеш. Мені з таким передачі станеш.
Ні, просто скажи, що хай ставили
А, напроти, да, окей.
тому що вони дуже розтягують кадр, я ніколи не знаю.
Привіт. Добре, тоді ще не що.
Коли стане, вставай напроти катеринда.
Це не страшно. Ну скажи щось, я перевірю. Скажи щось. Ага, супер. Це готово. Все, пішли.
Have you ever dreamt about success in the future? From the very beginning of the existence of mankind, we constantly strive for a better, more beautiful, and more perfect. How to succeed in life and become a happy and independent person. Everyone, regardless of their state of health and material status, at least once asks themselves about this. Achieving success requires more than just being born in that place or in that time. At first, you need to understand what success is for you. Generally, the concept of success is seen stereotypically. It is often defined as popularity, wealth, or fame. But is it really so? Who decides what success is for you? Society, press, family, or friends? Of course, all of them influence our vision of success. But sooner or later, you will have to formulate your own concept of it. Nowadays, most organizations require that their employees have certain abilities that allow them to do their jobs effectively. For example, photographers must understand how different camera settings and lighting affects a photo, and computer programmers need to know how to use programming languages. During training, we usually pay attention to cognitive skills, which are measured by habitual exams and IQ tests. And it is the basis for work. But creativity, empathy, communication, emotional intellect, it's all about soft skills, which we use every day. According to the analysis of Association of American Colleges and Universities, 93% of employers said that the ability to think creatively, to explain in a simple, inaccessible language, to solve complex problems, more important than the degree received at the university. Minerva University in San Francisco holds the same view. They have developed an alternative educational program. It intends to give students knowledge, not diplomas. The main difference between Minerva and traditional schools is the formation of thinking. They assure that every person should learn throughout all his life, work on problems, and always find a new, better approach. As a result, after graduation, their students know how to approach any problem, correctly analyze it, and find critical solutions. In general, the educational system is arranged so that people don't need to think much, but just need to learn, not to make mistakes. This is the fact that existing educational system teaches us to be afraid to study, to be afraid to make mistakes, to be afraid to do something wrong, different than the rest. Obviously, it's a terrible flaw. You can spend years of education and training and never learn about the ability to manage your mind, the most powerful tool that everyone has. Today, companies while interviewing job seekers are not really worried about the candidate's technical or domain depth. They know that they can teach them the most exotic technology, but they also know that soft skills are the hardest to provide. I found out about soft skills by accident. Now I'm finishing secondary school, but half a year ago I knew what to prepare for, and my mother helped me to choose a place for study. I learned more information about it, had language courses for a long time, and one moment everything collapsed. Later, we were invited to an event that was related to education and self-development. I didn't expect anything unusual, but people there talked about real life. They somehow opened the curtain of how the world works. What are the trends in education and work now, and how to choose a dream profession? If we talk about me and who I want to become, I'll say that I've never been completely sure of it. I'm interested in many things, but not all of them can become my job for income, or I just can imagine myself in this profession. For example, the main part of my mother's work takes place in the office. And I understand this is a hard work, and it requires a lot of time and health. You should always be ready to receive a call even in non-working hours. And it always seemed to me that I want to become someone special. What kind of job could give me inspiration and strength to continue to do what I do? As it turned out, people at the conference were great professionals and practitioners. And many professions which I spoke about were new to me, and the topic of important skills somehow came up there. I have never heard of this before, but it turns out that all of these areas in which I was interested in being related to soft skills. I realized that in order to become necessary, important, and effective person, I need to learn this. So I set myself the goal of doing small steps for my development every day. You'll probably ask me a question: what will the possession of soft skills lead to? Let's imagine that you open your business, whether it is coffee shop or an online store. The first thing you need is creativity. It's an ability to come up with something that will distinguish you from others. Create an unusual concept, and it is a possibility to quickly react and solve the problem in an unusual way. Further, effective communication. It's an opportunity to understand people, convey their thoughts correctly, and be able to convince. For example, At first, you should start with your own development program, necessary steps and activities to achieve goal and learn new skills. Goal needs to be written down, in a notebook, on a phone, on a piece of paper. It must be in close proximity. The thought that remains in your head, just a dream. It doesn't have accuracy. Then all your recorded development programs must have a deadline of a month, 6 months, or a year. Look at on your development as an investment on your future goals in life, business, or career. You need to pick out several tasks, for example 5. Think about what you will need now and what is possible to learn later. Then ask yourself 3 the most important questions. What you will develop, how will you develop it, and what possible problems could be along the way. It is one more important and very effective way is always look for people who can teach you something new. It could be your parents, coaches, or even people who don't know about your existence. Famous people or celebrities. Observe them, adopt their behavior patterns, study their history, their ups and downs, their success and mistakes. Improve your skills based on how they use their own. It would be better to work with more competent colleagues and partners who possess those qualities and skills that you strive to develop in yourself. You should work, and of course the important thing to achieve the goal is to use effort. Jump at every opportunity of testing your communication and soft skills, be it in a school or a class or a college or an informal group of friends. Clubs and meetup groups that give you chances to step in front of audience and develop your confidence. It is only when you speak in different situations among different kinds of audiences that you can entire flex your range of soft skills. The methods to improving our skills remain the same throughout our lives. The most important, you have to remember that your development is only your responsibility. And all the steps you are doing now influence your future success in many fields. Thank you.
Він точно пише?
А?
Кажу, він точно пише? Може, ти ще заграв? Бувало, але не сьогодні.
Угу. Да, я знаю. Зараз ми зняли півгодинне інтерв'ю. Я прийшов додому, а вона записала 30 секунд, а далі поламалася.
Було краще, ми знали втрьох, там була координати, яка не включила сторінку. І з першого разу не вийшло і зняти. Я кажу, може, все, зараз перезняти. Я розумію, що яка не просто включила.
Да. Там круто, коли ти не знімав купу матеріалу. А то тут у мене ще одна зйомка. Я так подумав, що я перейду, і помогну просто.
Кинути декілька робіт, щоб я змонтував, кинув.
Так. Там буде.
Ну, небагато не кинув.
У вівторок там будуть зйомки. Чого будуть зйомки? Типу рекламок інстаграма. І там треба буде змонтувати. Ну, там типу коротенько, 15 секунд. Там я вже написав на нього типу приблизно розкадровку.
Ну, в общем, ти всі кидав?
Да, окей.
Я в середу буду вторик.
Так, да. Вівторок там не я буду знімати, ще оператор буде, бо я вівторок в іншому місці знімаю. Так, привіт.
Бачиш літеру Д? Трошки. Ну, тобто, без того.
Навпроти букви. Навпроти букви деськи. Ну, ти можеш ходити, але зараз стань навпроти букви Д. Ну, як зараз. Ти де кишені? Так, там зразу чекати, ти заспідився, а не витримає цю штуку.
Да.
Ну скажи що-небудь. Добре, чую. Єсть. Зараз ще раз скажи щось.
Алло.
Зараз. На той наушник. Скажи.
Так, раз.
А, ну, моя камера вимкнута. Давай зараз. Давай.
Громче.
Да, все нормально. Може йти. Все, вперед. Все.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Me llamo Nastya. How are you guys? My name is Nastya, and I hope you are doing well. At first, I'd like to ask you a question. Who are you? Simple question, yep. And can you give me an answer? Sure, you may say, I'm a human being. But if each of us says it, will this, a human being, be a personality? Anywhere, anytime, you can hear, just be you, from other people. But you stand there and think, what does it mean to be me? Let's look at the beginning of our life. Mom always told me I was like no one else, but was she right? From our childhood, we're trying to be similar to people who we love. We don't even try to be like that people. We try to be that people. With a gleam in our eyes, we're staring at them coming in our lives, staying there for some time, inviting us to themselves, teaching us how to behave like them, and we learn it, because we want to do this. There can be many such people throughout our life, and are you ready to see the most common example? Imagine, you are 6 years old. Your mom is your idol. You always looked at her actions, reactions on somebody's actions, and you liked it. At one moment you started copying her, and you can do it for years. That's why you copied her until now. And here you stand in front of your mom. So when you look in her eyes, what do you see? You'll tell me, I see myself. So can you say that your mom is a mirror in which you can see yourself? Actually, humanity recognizes itself in a comparison each person to other people. We look at them like in a mirror where we can see our reflection. Copy them because we need the answer to the question, who we really are. We don't know what we can do to become ourselves because we just pretend of being others. Unaware of who we are, we're looking for the answer to the question in the reactions and intentions by the people, and their opinion about us. And then, due to other people saying, we learn how to be like this, or to be like that. For example, a child is told that she is a girl. She begins to look at other girls and takes on their girlhood. I'm the same girl as Amy, Betty, Cindy, so I also like playing dolls. And then she comes to other girls and says, I'm such a girl like you, and tries to understand the reaction, whether they believe in her girlhood, don't they? Again, as for me, my mom was my first idol I faced. She's an interesting person, and I do love the way she behaves, whom she works, how she looks like, and I had much more reasons to make her my idol. My second example of becoming someone else is the mentor I met when I was a teen. He was not a really famous celebrity, just a boy. But I looked at him and I wanted to behave like him. Because even now he behaves confident and calmly, and I totally meet these features of his character. So I tried to fill the missing parts of myself by his impact. I tried to copy his behavior because I wanted to fill these gaps. How can we know who we are till we try to do anything? Are we still we when we do what we haven't done before? We're staying ourselves. Or what happens? Are you sure you know what you like if you haven't tried? Let's listen to my friend's story. The girl, my friend, got to the disco for the first time. It was an ordinary disco. Music, dancing, some contests were held, and she was likely to win at one of them. A prize was to choose the next song. She was confused, and at that moment, a lot of thoughts were spinning in her head. Which song should I choose? I don't know songs which are good for the disco. I know songs which I like and listen to. She didn't know songs which teens listen to on disco parties. And at the same time, she was afraid of not becoming classy and losing her face. I actually can't remember what song it was, and it doesn't even matter. It was an experiment for her, to choose the song and to go to the disco. She didn't look at other people there and chose by herself. Both then and now, she understands that not every person liked the song she chose. Someday we realize that we can't pretend being somebody else and be respected by the people. We understand that we can't be any person we have ever met. We continue to look at those reflections, and one day we wonder, what do we like in ourselves? And from that time we get lost in all that items to be us. And again, who we are in fact now. Real me or not, i.e., am I as I am, or not as I am now? When a person begins to fixate strongly on a question of being yourself, he or she can go blank from every little thing, painfully trying to make that one choice, but not in any case not to do like anyone. But at the same time, that person absolutely doesn't know what he or she wants to choose. The person doesn't know himself or herself. For example, Nastya, who decided to be herself whatever it takes, have come there in a cafe with her friends, can hang near a cake window for half an hour. She doubts whether to buy a chocolate cake. But maybe bought the same one. Maybe I just repeat after Remy. Either a lemon one. I don't seem to like lemon. Or a low-calorie dessert. It's certainly not my wish. Just a fashion to lose weight. Or I still want to lose weight, and is it my choice to eat healthy food? And the main question is, who is Nastya? And which cups does she really like? Maybe she needs to experiment with taste? So, are we still as we are, but an experiment? Sure, take out the still. We stay ourselves, always while experimenting. Anytime something happens in our life, we recognize ourselves a little bit more. But how to get to know yourself? What does it mean to meet a person like you? Who is this person? What kind of person should he or she be? actually trying to find ourselves out copying somebody. From our childhood, we don't know who we are and search for ourselves by this way. Just try on another image in an atom to be somebody else. But we can't become that person at all, right? Let's take an example of a celebrity. Madonna, may it be. You like her, and copy her songs, voice, dress like she wears. You're just trying to be equal to her. But at the same time, you can't get it all because you have other habits, behavior, facial features, and even plastic surgery can't help you to get her appearance. You will always be yourself, no matter how many personalities you try to be. But if you like singing, why can't you try to copy a person who sings better than you do? It will just teach you. You're experimenting not for the sake of showing that you are cool, but for the sake of understanding what you like and what do not. Let's imagine somebody comes to you and asks about the language you like. Hey dude, which language do you prefer to speak at? And really, which language do you prefer? Українська, русский, Espanol, Deutsch, English? Answer. I don't know. I haven't tried to speak other languages. Never gonna know if you never even try. Without listening to the sensations, no matter how trendy, you won't find the answer to this issue. Try. Be yourself. Experiment with everything you want to. But does this all mean that you must always be yourself? For you to know, to be yourself means to be honest with you. And if your favorite clothes are hoodies, jeans, sneakers, you won't go to a job interview in this, right? By the way, to be yourself also means to be flexible and to adapt to any situation, whatever it may be. You honestly say to you, I like these clothes, but you understand that even if in these clothes you're the real you, you mustn't be like this every time. In this case, this is not a violation of your interests. You just show respect to a company in which you want to work. I can say, even to go somewhere in other clothes, it's an experiment. What if you like it? And in the end of my speech, let's back to the main. Who are you? How to find yourself? How to understand your feelings? You mustn't lose your personality for other people. In order to not to get lost in your life, I want to give you some pieces of advice based on my life experience. You have to listen to your inner world, but you must listen to adults who can teach you with the help of the results of their life mistakes, based on their life experience. But I didn't say that you need to listen to that point of view at all. Just keep in mind, we all are changing every 5 years and meet the new self. This new personality consists of a new worldview, new habits, modified opinion, etc. It's okay. We need to develop, find out something new. Throughout our life, we discover ourselves and mustn't deprive ourselves of the joys of life, meeting different people. Be afraid of something new. Finally, you will understand what is comfortable for you. Don't be afraid of trying something new, because being yourself means life-length experiment. Thank you so much for your attention.
Слухай, але це нелогічно. При випні Коли воно більше
Так,
витрачає
воно більше
енергії.
жире.
Скажи мені, як виключити Wi-Fi краще?
А?
Як вимкнути Wi-Fi? Просто переключитись на потік?
Так, можна натиснути. Особисто у мене. Я вже забув, що натискається.
Все ж таки однаково саме.
Ну, у мене Марк 4. У мене, по-моєму, я вже так давно його не вмикав, що я забув.
Добре, я просто буду фото переводити.
Угу. Боже, як ще його вмикав? О, відео його не можна вмикати. Можна його просто зробити менше з екрану. В цьому настройках зараз десь. Десь у мене тут було.
У мене 2 палички.
Угу.
В тебе тільки 2 окна.
Да. У мене 3 палички. Я взяв зарядку, якщо що.
Можна ще щось. Можна якийсь мануал.
От можна.
Можна вимкнути став. І якщо ти знаєш, як зробити шустро яскравіше менше, то можеш зробити на цій камері.
Зроблю яскравість нормально. А, блін, я на це готую. Звичайно. Ага. Угу. А ну скажи що-небудь.
Работает?
Раз. І ще раз.
Работает или нет?
Да, все працює. Все, погнали. Навпроти букви Д. Угу.
One day, actually, one night, a boy with his girlfriend were sitting in a dark room on 15th floor. They were laughing, eating, watching the stars, having a great time at all, and watching a horror film. Nothing could go wrong, but a sudden knock in the window interrupted the silence of the night. Is it a monster, a ghost, or a vampire? Perhaps, but not in my story. In my story, it's just a drone delivered a pizza from the nearest cafe. And it's normal, because we have drones. It doesn't matter how far do you live. They can fly anywhere and can bring you many different things only in a few minutes. Let's consider our attention on a few examples. You can receive your favorite meal from your favorite restaurant without leaving your home. Drones come in our daily life too, and we can use them right now. Drones can bring organ transplants or medicine to patients in local hospitals. Or in my personal experience, when I broke my leg and couldn't even move, I wanted to drink some coke, but nobody was at home, and my friend attached the bottle of cola to his drum with the duct tape and brought it to me. He used the remote control to lead the drum and the camera on it and his smartphone to see what's happening around. As a result, the drone flew up to the window and delivered a bottle of cola right in my bed. During the quarantine, drones can also help people to receive necessary things, such as food, water, medicine, and so on, even a dog walking. Also, drones can perform social defense functions, patrolling the streets, informing people, temperature screening. They can help emergency services, firefighters, and police. And it's much easier to disinfect drones than chemical hazard suits or trucks. The application area of drones isn't only delivering bottles of cola. For example, drones can be as small as matchbox to bring tiny things, or big as truck if it's a cargo drone. Armed forces and frontier guards can use drones in spare corps or to control the border. We can use drones instead of helicopters to detect the fire, for example in Chernobyl exclusion zone. City services may use drones to fix electricity or to do else high altitude work. And what about some futuristic ideas? Have you ever thought what would be if we had drones gardeners or drone landscape designers? They may look for trees, flowers, and even grow them up. Drone's assistants in stores that will help us to choose the right thing or to learn more info about it. Drone barman, which can mix you the greatest cocktail only in a blink of eye. Drone housewife. It can clean your room, make your breakfast, wash your clothes, and do our other housework instead of you. It doesn't matter how we will use drones. They're the future. They're here to make our lives easier and give us more time for ourselves, to spend this time with family, to develop ourselves, to be happy, but not to do boring daily routine. I believe we enter into the drones era. Thanks for attention.
Але був безпередній, тому не працює. Що щось придумав? А? Ну, ладно. теоретично.
Чисто гипотетически.
Перерву можна буде зробити, якось у наступному вже буде перерву. Піти, але буде корочки нові. А ну скажи щось. Блін, фігово так виглядає. Така болюча процедура надівання за штани закріпляє. Да, все. Навпроти букви Д. Навпроти букви Д. Заходь, заходь.
Як нас?
Все, все, все. Все.
Do you believe that aliens will come and kill all people in the near future? I study at school and I have a habit to check everything in several sources, make my own research, and only then the conclusions. So you can imagine how much time I spent on learning only one paragraph. But it gives me pleasure and confidence, and it's a big weight off my shoulders to be aware of what is true and what is false. But even with fact-checking, I can doubt my view. Raise your hands if you doubted your answer to the lesson. Raise your hands if you have had doubts asked about your opinion in school. We can't know everything, so the second type of question is easier. Isn't it? You can say whatever you think because it's your opinion, and teachers will be satisfied anyway. One day, through my experience, the answer is no. Once upon a time, the teacher asked me if I like the novel. It was a tricky question. If I had said no, even with arguments, she would have said, "You didn't read attentively," be angry with me, and give me a bad rating. But why I have to lie? It's improper, isn't it? I was taught that lying is bad, but I was also encouraged to have a good grades. It wasn't the only one episode when there were doubts because of the conflict between belief and reality. I think everyone has the same experience that also creates the same conflict inside. There are a lot of this in our daily life. But I want to give an example that everyone knows and worry about. I will present some facts and also some reasonable hypotheses. You may not believe me, and this is my aim, to make you think, filtrate, and make your own conclusions. So, my example is global warming, and therefore the question: is global warming so simple thing that most people have the same opinion about it. Probably you will say that global warming is included in the top problems of humanity, and almost every day you hear about the current situation. Moreover that, you always hear scary predictions to the future. But can we definitely know what will be in the future? Of course no. So there are a lot of other, more attractive hypotheses. For instance, the German scientist Stefan Kropelin insists that the growth of the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has a good influence on the dry regions on our planet. He visited the Sahara Desert several times and interviewed local people who claimed that they started to graze their cattle on earlier lifeless places. There are also evidences that our contribution to the global warming isn't as big as we display. Some scientists insist that the climate of the Earth is changing all of the time of its existence, and the same is happening now. Their conclusion is that our role in global warming is really small. I have a friend who studies physics and astronomy. She is also interested in all belonging to those sciences. She told me one really interesting hypothesis about reasons of global warming. It sounds the next way. After Big Bang, our planet is moving away from the center of the universe. So, because of this, the temperature around the Earth is getting lower. Some scientists claimed that global warming is just an act of our planet to maintain the permanent temperature. There are a lot of different reasonable hypotheses about the reasons and outcomes of global warming. So why do absolute majority of people believe that global warming is caused only by people and in the end will kill us? Why do we choose the worst one? People always want to believe in better, don't we? Why do most people have the same opinion about something? The answer is hidden in our perception. Each of us has pictures that are our own understanding of the problem or question. They form during the life thanks to the information and knowledge that form the outline, and also emotions and ideas that color our picture. Thanks to them, we do what we do. The brighter the picture is, the more important for us it is. The problem is that simple, understandable facts are the easiest to find. They can create a picture for us even if we don't do deep research. New facts that disagree with the current view can blur our shoulders, but it's only in case that you are looking for something new. We have pictures for almost everything, and mostly we aren't professionals in all that we are sure of. But where does the confidence come from? We don't need to learn everything. Why do we need to waste our time on it? But where comes from confidence? And why do a lot of people have the same opinion about it? In the 16th century, when the biggest problem of humanity was cruel and unfair government, Thomas More created his utopia. There he describes the perfect, unreal world with ideal social-political system. He added brightness to each picture. And then the other writers and public figures did the same. they showed people what they can have. And in the end, the Thomas More goal was achieved. Social political system now is much better. As the saying goes, people will do more to save money than to get them. Thomas More make people want to get something, and nowadays people use the opposite. If we are talking about global warming, we can describe it as anti-utopia. Scary, detailed world that everyone fear and will do everything to stop it. And only few people try to check their fears. If you just believe in what you hear, you have a general view that really looks like picture colored by numbers. You get all you need, and it left only to color with specified colors that are expected emotions. It takes the least time and gives you satisfaction and confidence. A lot of people are lazy enough, so they use this way. It also explains why a lot of people have the same opinion about something. So, coming back to my question, is global warming so simple that most people have the same opinion about it? The answer is no. It's complicated, debatable, and doubtful, and the smartest people of the world aren't definitely sure. But lazy people are. Global warming isn't the only doubtful question in today's world. If you think carefully, spend some time, you won't be sure in earlier obvious statements. So, should you do your own research and change your opinion about something? The answer isn't simple. Having picture colored by numbers save your time for maybe more important things. Maybe the general views are created to encourage people to get something bigger together, or it's better for us not to know something. But how to be sure in something without checking? How to be sure in your decisions and that the result will be as you expect? I decided to be author of my picture. Confidence or doubt? Uniqueness or ordinariness? Spend time or save it? Picture colored by numbers or your own? It's only your choice. Thank you.
Думаєш, записує, що ми постійно показуємо будущее. Числа
Ну, просто на цьому воно максимальна кількість 2000. Так, я відключу. Дальше вже теж дві палочки. Ну, це ще не. Побачив. Яку до паузи можна. Да. Зараз останнє. Господи, боже ж ти. Привіт. Проти букви Д. Вона проти букви Д стоїш.
Have you ever been offended? Maybe somebody pushed you in public transport, or cursed at you because of your look. Someone robbed you. Your parents shouted at you every time you had done something wrong, or you felt vulnerable and feared because someone hated you. I mean, things like this happened to all of us, and for many people that's not even a problem. But have you ever thought what would a world be like without violence? It seems utopia now, but is it really so? Let's take a look at our society. We are surrounded by violence. We can see all this bad stuff on news, on streets, or even in our families. But why? Why do people beat each other and commit crimes? I think that it all comes from childhood. I always hear that boys have to be able to stand up for themselves and their future families. I agree with that phrase, but usually it's about fights and aggression. Who's stronger? That is the question where all kids' conflicts head. So weak children are using to be offended, and strong children are using to solve all problems by aggression. Then they grow up and still trying to use their old manner to solve conflicts. But the adult world isn't so simple like kids. They don't know what to do. So usually, most of the school bullies achieve less than other students, and this pushes them to commit crimes. Who's guilty? Parents are fully responsible for their children, so they have to teach and raise good ideas in them. Actually, one of the most usable skills that every person should have is how to solve problems without aggression. This ability can make your life easier and more comfortable. Let me give an example. I know two boys, Max and Alex. They were literally best friends. One day, Alex asked for a video game that Max had and wasn't using. But Max, for some reason, refused. Alex didn't understand why his friend can't give him a disc, so he decided to take it and then bring it back. But a week later, Max noticed the missing with his other friend. His friend said, "You definitely should beat Alex up. He stole your disc. That's terrible." Max wasn't sure about the fight, but he decided to take revenge. On the next day, while they were fighting, a disc with a video game was broken, but something more important has broken the day too. That was their friendship. So what have they got? Broken friendship, broken disc with a video game, and some injuries. Both of them made mistakes, but we're not perfect, and that's okay. The critical mistake was made when, under the pressure of society, Max decided to use violence, and Alex couldn't just say no to fight because of the same reason. A way to a positive outcome is obvious. They had to talk and bury the hatchet. But then aggression seemed to them the only possible solution. We need to teach kids and all people that conflicts can be solved without violence. And if you use peaceful methods, it doesn't mean that you're a coward or weak. In fact, having that skill means you're really wise and strong. The main question is, what can we do now? Of course, at first, you shouldn't cause violence. Then, you should develop in yourself skills of how to evade conflicts and solve complicated problems without aggression. How to do that? Communicate with other people and consider their opinions. This is more difficult than just do as you want, but that's also where solution and agreement are. As someone said, words have power with ability to help, to heal, to hinder, to harm, to hurt, to humiliate, and to humble. Don't let anger take over you, and teach controlling emotions. There are different ways of how to manage your emotions. Some people need to be alone for some time. Someone needs to talk with a close person, while another wants to wreck some glass. These are good ideas to lower bad emotions, but only when it doesn't harm other people. When emotions take over the human, person can do a lot of bad things. So explore yourself and find out your own ways to control them. This will help you better understand yourself and not to do thoughtless things. Also, an important question is how to give these ideas to your kids. The most important is that you should follow described ideas and show what is good and what is bad with your own example. Because small children try to copy the behavior of their parents. So, the world without violence seems utopia now. Or is it really so? I believe that all we together can make a better society without any violence. This idea and an ambitious goal certainly worth sharing. Everyone should do steps towards a beautiful future world, and everyone's participation is important. Thank you.
Друзі, ми послухали вже 7 учасників, ще 7 попереду. Ми зробимо невеличку паузу, тож залишайтеся з нами і ми повернемося в ефір через 10-15 хвилин.
Скажи що-небудь?
Правильно.
Ага. Зараз, ще раз. Ну, зараз скажи.
Привіт.
І ще раз.
Привіт.
О, все супер. Все, можна заходити. От тут ви. Навпроти букви Д ставай.
Before I start my talk, I want you to close your eyes and think of all the good things that happened yesterday. Maybe you met an old friend, finished reading a book, finally found the headphones you lost, heard a funny dialogue on the street, or the weather was nice. Try to recall as many moments as you can. 10 or more would be perfect. Well, now you can open your eyes. So, what is your impression of this task? Was it easy for you or difficult as it was for me at first? You know, the first time when I tried to do this, I hardly managed to write 5 moments, while the task required 10. And it was not because the day was bad. It was because I noticed only what I didn't do, what happened not the way I wanted. After that, I began to research information about optimism, and I also started an experiment. I have tried myself different tips I found, which eventually made me more optimistic. So today I want to share them with you. But of course, we should find balance in everything, and we don't have to be happy all the time. It's okay to have bad days, feel sad and disappointed. It would be really strange to be glad of every bad event or failure. Just that pessimists often think that this will last very long, but optimists know that it's more or less temporary and soon everything will get better. But why is it important to be more optimistic? Some pessimists may think that they are okay with being pessimistic and it's good that they are always prepared for the worst. But actually it doesn't help a lot in life. Well, first of all, pessimists often notice the worst only. For example, during quarantine, pessimistic people may think only about how awful it is to be stuck at home when the weather is so wonderful. They worry how long this will last, while optimists are also able to see positive sides of the situation. For example, that this is a great time to recall their hobbies. I personally finally found time for drawing and watching movies. Optimists' mindset, of course, makes life happier, more interesting, productive, and enjoyable. Famous politician Winston Churchill said, "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." That is why it is so much better to be more positive. It opens a lot of new possibilities. Pessimists usually prefer to describe why they can't do something, while optimists try to find ways how to achieve what they want. And scientists have also proved that whether we think positively or not affects our lives in many ways. According to the study published in one American journal, positive people live 10 years longer than others. They often feel less pain at the dentist appointments and experience far less stress. They also have better brain health and a reduced risk of death from cardiovascular diseases. So, the first tip that I recommend you to try and that helped me to improve my positive thinking is to write 10 bright moments that happen every day. It may seem easy, but in my opinion, it is a great task to find out whether a person is pessimistic or not. This exercise shows your ability to find interesting and fun moments in everyday life. And if a person learns to notice them, their mood in general will definitely be better. When I did this exercise for the first time, I noticed that I consider moments as happy only those like vacations or holidays. But it is not a very good idea to think so, because in fact such events happen not very often in ordinary people's life. Maybe 20 or perhaps 30 days a year. So if we imagine our year as a line and color such moments in green, it will look like this. You see, only a small part of this line is actually green. This is why it is so important to be able to notice happiness in routine, so that our year would look like this. My second advice is to use interesting instead of difficult. My mom likes to say this very much often when she helps my sister with her math homework, and she starts to dramatize complexity of a task. I think we can apply this tip not only to school, but to life in general. We can change our attitude to some difficulty this way. Instead of just worrying, we can try to think what we will learn from a problem. Imagine a world where you get everything you want right away. A brand new smartphone just appears in the air. A flying car, no problem. Well, at first it would be pretty interesting and fun, but I assume that after some time we'd be bored. Also, it is often said that optimists are usually more successful than pessimists. But do you know a reason why it is usually so? Well, the answer is really simple. Optimists just try more things. They are open to the new possibilities. Pessimists, in most cases, expect that if something is new and unusual, then it is bad. I used to avoid new things in the past. I thought that if I hadn't done something before, then I would definitely fail. Later, I understood that behaving in such a way stopped me from new experiences. So I started to change thoughts in my head like, I have never done that before, I shouldn't try that at all, to it's a great opportunity to learn something new. For example, let's imagine a situation when a friend suggests you to try a new activity, hiking or something else. What would you do? Try it out or reject this opportunity, scared that you have never done that before? A famous phrase, can't change a situation, change an attitude, has also helped me a lot when I started using it in everyday life. All situations are in fact neutral, and people give them some emotional coloring. Several years ago, when my aunt was on a vacation in Turkey with her family, their flight back home was delayed on 3 days. It was really unpleasant because she and her husband had to run back to work by that time, but they were stuck in another country. Well, everything turned out well in the end. They were transferred to a new hotel for free, which was even better than the one they stayed in before, but they could worry that everything turned out not how they wanted and spoil themselves another day's of vacation by the sea, or they could relax. Well, they chose the second option. So, today I wanted to show you why optimism is so important for us. Remember that how you think about events that happen around you extremely affects your life. And it is your choice to try new things or not, to see happiness in everyday life, or wait for some special events that happen infrequently. I definitely can't say that I have overcome all pessimistic thoughts in my head and now I can be joyful all the time. But I have found some tips that help me to think more positively than I used to. And they are as following. Every day write 10 great moments that happened. Use interesting instead of difficult. Don't be afraid of new possibilities. And can't change a situation, change an attitude. Another important thing that I wanted to show you during this talk is that optimism can be learned. It is a skill like math or cooking, but if you master it, it can change your life. Thank you for your attention.
На очах стане.
Що злякався вже? Надо забути 400 це.
Якщо я щось не так роблю, то скажи.
Та ні, вже ніж так, я ж потім мене вже 482 кадри в мене залишилося.
Що в тебе 1600 і 40, а в мене 640, і в мене нормально.
Ні, а що у тебе?
Таке ж саме.
Таке ж саме, але 50. Переставлю, просто його...
Ну, почекай, може в мене що ходить. Дозвольте.
Угу. У мене просто ближче, і з-за того, що ближче, воно не так яскраво. Так. буде.
Все одно
Ну,
буде.
темно просто. А, ну да, того в тебе і менше пам'яті, тобто у тебе майже вдвічі менше віза. Так.
No.
Добре. Так, дальше. Навпроти букви Д.
Every day we need to make many choices. Some decisions don't change life much, but some make all the difference. There is an interesting fact, and all you know it. People don't like wasting energy. Because we're lazy and need to do something, because life is motion. It's easier to give up and turn on energy saving mode. That's established in us. That's why we're creating technologies to simplify our lives. Now, I want you to remember the last situation when you faced a choice. It can be whether to eat porridge or eggs for breakfast, should I change school or not, have tea or coffee, support and lie, or tell the truth. Do you regret the decision you've made? And do you want to change it? Wrong decisions can lead us into a corner. Often, people facing a choice know the right option somewhere inside, but they're afraid to choose it. Afraid because of judgment or defeat. My point is that you need to act wisely, even if it's difficult, even if it's scary. Don't be afraid to do. Be afraid to regret that you haven't done. It's better at least to try. For example, take on a project. Even if you failed, you've started, tried, learned from your mistakes, and during the process, you've discovered something new. You do not stay still, but develop. Risk is a path of doubts and insecurities before something great happens. Some people decide to go along this difficult path, while others prefer to go with the flow. You may ask, why should I take a risk if I don't have any guarantees it might turn out to be successful? I'll tell you. Risk makes you reach places which you would never reach. The risk rule is, in a controversial situation, do not ignore the risky path. Weigh all the decisions, and if it is possible and doesn't threaten your life, learn to avoid risk. If you think that only those people who are already millionaires can take a risk, then you're wrong. All of them were no different from you before they achieved their goal. For example, Oprah Winfrey, perhaps the most successful woman entrepreneur in the world. The only African American woman on Forbes 2018 billionaires list. She left her steady job as co-anchor of 6 o'clock news in Baltimore to host a third-rate talk show in Chicago. After boosting that show's ratings to the first place, she launched her own show, which has become the highest-rated program of its kind in history. Oprah proves that measured risk-taking can yield great reward, even if it takes a few tries. Do the one thing you think you cannot do. Fail at it. Try again. Do better the second time. The only people who never tumble are those who never mount the high wire, she said. What do you think about risk now? One of my life's scaredness and risks was the same as most of TED speakers faced: to present a speech in front of the audience using the English language. I thought, what if I can't speak in front of the public using the English language? What if I fail? That is hard. But in one moment I realized, I can't live like this more. This is a great opportunity and experience, and I can do this. I have to risk and get out of the procrastination cocoon. Then I decided to risk despite fears of failure and created Risk Group. And look at me now. I'm standing in front of you and speaking on TED. That is incredible. And I'm here because I've taken this rule in my life and tried to follow this. You can also do this. For example, take part in a competition. Get ready for it. And maybe you will win and get a lot of joy. Of course, there is a chance that you will not take a prize, but don't be afraid to fall. Whatever, you will get experience, and during the process of preparation, you will learn a lot. I want you to rethink your life and choices that you've made. Even if you're afraid of something, just try to do it. I don't ask you to jump out of the window just because it is a risk. No, of course you have to think about the consequences. But when you follow Risk Rule, your life will become funnier and richer. Risk at work, and you'll climb up the career ladder. Risk to go to a party instead of sitting in your bed and eating, and you'll make new contacts and friends. Risk admitting love, and you'll find your soulmate. Joan Rowling's book Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was rejected by over a dozen publishers. Finally, a small British publisher, Bloomsbury, said yes. Joan achieved her success because she worked a lot, didn't give up, and believed in her creation. I think you already know what heights she has reached. Grab the opportunity, and don't be afraid of doing a choice that seems to be hard to embody. Risk and do it. Thank you.
everyone. Before we start, I'd like to ask you a question. What do you use a paperclip for? Another question is, how can you use a paperclip in a creative way, except of keeping papers together? An average person can come up only with approximately 10 ways of using a paperclip, such as removing hair from a hairbrush. But I bet you didn't think of using a paperclip as a tool for clipping your shoelaces together, like with papers. And here comes the third question. Why do some people think of 110 ways of using a paperclip, while others can come up only with 10 ways? The key is creativity. Imagine the situation. You are applying for a job and your boss asks you to make a video. What do you know about your future job and why you are the best person for this position? You already recorded the video and understood. Then there is nothing special about it. Next, you start redoing the whole video, trying to make it more creative, and then you get stuck because you don't have enough creativity. But if you have, firstly, you would ask your colleagues, employers, or watch some videos where people having the same experience as the past, before doing it by yourself. This situation is very similar to a paperclip test. You use only 2-3 ways instead of using 110. I realized that I have a problem with creativity at my school. There is tradition to make a huge magazine every year. Only high school students can participate, so that was a challenge for me for my first time. Our team was the best with all types of tasks, like grammar, speaking, writing. But the only weakness was the task where we needed to make our own image without using internet. And I will say in advance, we failed. And then I understood how it was. The lack of artistry in our team led us to fail. I'm going to teach you how to improve your creativity and problem solving continuously. I came up with 3 strategies of improving creativity during my project. Firstly, you must learn how to see your problem. You must ask question to your question. For example, our problem is my dog always chewing my sneakers, and we have 6 questions. Who, what, where, when, how, and why. Who helps us to get in touch with people connected with the problem. It can be dog trainer, parents, or people who have the same problem in the past, as it was in a job. But in first, it should be you, because it's your dog and it's your dog. What helps us understand what can be done to stop chewing. It can be a specific toy that distracts dog's attention from sneakers. Where helps us understand places, locations, and critical spots of a problem. Where can you buy new sneakers at first? Where can you buy a specific toy? And where can you find a dog trainer? Also, it's very important to know where your dog always chewing your sneakers, because you can easily put a toy instead of sneakers in that place. Next question is when. When helps us understand your dog's behavior. When does your dog chew your sneakers? When it's irritated, when it wants to play with you or whatever. Why helps us understand why your dog doing it. Because it's itching, or because it wants to play with you again, or because it's get an injury on you. And the last question is how. How is the main question. How can you distract dog emotion from sneakers to a toy, or just to a toy. Secondly, you must learn how to reserve your question. For example, our question is how to make a good presentation, and we reserve it. How to make an attractive presentation. And now you start thinking more, not doing just a good presentation, also an attractive. And you think of more catchy headline or brighter images. Or let's take another example. Our question is how to get rich, because everyone wants to be rich, but a lot of people don't know how. So at first we should understand what rich people have in common. And I consider Bill Gates and Elon Musk to be rich, and they have in common is creativity. So we reserve question how to get rich to how to be creative. And then you start using my strategies, and you get rich with my strategies. And thirdly, you must learn how to see your problem more deeply. For example, you you must change the words in your question. By converting words, I mean changing the ways of solving your problem. For example, it can be, our question is, you have an auto salon and you want to increase sales. Then we change it and our question is how to reduce sales. And for example, how to reduce sales, you need not give any advertisement to your auto salon. Then you won't have any car sales because nobody will know you. Or how to stop sales, and you should stop giving money to the auto salon bank. And this strategy is very important because you know what shouldn't be done if you have a car salon, and it also helps you easier find the correct way instead of amplifying on a problem. I told you 3 rules for improving your creativity and problem solving. You should ask question to your question, reserve your question, and take it more deeply to your question. And in the end, I will give you a task for your creativity. How can you use a door in a creative way? And it will be your home task. Thank you for your time and think outside the box.
Думаю, так ще номерного кажу. Так, залишити 4.
У мене є. У мене 12. І 13 там це. У нас світло,
Окей. 14. А скільки ще залишилось? 2? Вот сюда.
I am an average 15 years old girl. I'm not a typical teenager. First of all, I am a girl. Because when you're 15, and when you're a girl, since birth you've got the whole world telling you what to do and what not to do because of your gender. Adults tell you, be modest, you are a girl. The society tells you, you are not going to achieve it, it's too difficult for a woman, you belong to kitchen because you are a girl. And the school tells you, stop wearing sleeveless shirts, cover your shoulders, you dress like a slut. When it's 30 degrees outside. But all of these rules aren't related to both genders. The school doesn't tell boys stop wearing shirts because everyone can see their legs. they can go topless, and the society doesn't tell them that making sandwiches and looking after children is their purpose because you are a boy. I didn't understand why we, girls, are the ones that have to cover up. Why our schools tell us that we are causing a problem and taking away from education of others. So I grew up with an understanding that I don't want to see this future as it is supposed to be in our society just because you are a girl. But can you imagine these uncles believe that they must spend their life ironing their husband's shirts and raising children? Some of my friends believe that a marriage, housekeeping, is what we were born for. These girls don't see any other ways of life, because they were brought up with the label that they are girls and they play their lives with no limitations. Let's imagine one of these girls will grow up. She'll become a beautiful woman, striving for perfection, because her patriarchal family made her understand that she should be perfect to be valued. She'll get married in her early 20s. She won't have time for her career, and the family will be the most important for her. But it won't be so for her husband. He'll cheat on her, and he won't value her. And only at the age of 40, this little girl in her soul will realize that she doesn't deserve it, and it just shouldn't be like that. I know what I'm talking about. Oh, the same thing happened to my dearest person in the entire world. My mom. My mom's story is a typical story of a woman who has become hostage to a patriarchal system. But the question is, will our generation continue it in the future or not? It isn't addressed to girls only, because dear men and boys, believe me, you also have plenty of reasons to support gender equality and be against patriarchy. Patriarchy. The system that is supposed to benefit men. Where they dominate, they hold high positions, they are more respected, they have more influence on women and children, they are more powerful. But here are the downsides. To get all of these privileges, you have to be an ideal man. He is strong, white, ignorant, cruel, non-feminine, heterosexual, and unemotional. It is this kind of man that patriarchy benefits. But we all understand that the likelihood of anyone actually meeting all of those standards is almost impossible. So basically the patriarchy will fail you because you will fail the patriarchy. Because of it, you can't call the police and say that you are the victim of abuse, sexual assault, or violence. No one will do anything with it, because if you were a victim, it was your own fault for not being manly enough. Because of it, little men, boys, and teenagers are told to hide emotions and not to cry. On the contrary, women who express their emotions tend to live longer lives, and we in 4 times as likely to end our lives with suicides. Because of it, you are forced to take arms and fight. Just go to any Veterans Administration hospital and spend 1 day talking to the patients. There you will find broken people. And the majority of them end their lives able to gut yourself years, suicide victims, coal miners, drug addicts, and whiners. Then come back and tell me that the patriarchy favors men. We all know that about 2 and 6 million years ago, survival was the only priority. Biologically, men tend to be bigger and stronger than women. That's why men battled mammals to get food while women were nurturing and doing the housework. That's just the way it was. It's understandable that there was no necessity in teaching girls or giving them more rights, because they were stuck in cases where they were pregnant for much of their short lives. So it was quite logically to educate men, given that they required special skills for protecting the whole tribe. And there the patriarchy worked incredibly. And it was an amazing solution 2 and 6 million years ago, because every single being depended on your physical power,
where we women lag behind. So men were the one in church, and women and children were protected by them. The only remark is that it was 2 and 6 million years ago. With our new deceit, our humanity was developing more and more, and we were being convinced that our bodies aren't humans' greatest trait. So due to developing industries where social, linguistic, and not only physical skills were involved, it was quite logical to give us, women, more rights. But they didn't. And over the time, the patriarchy went from being a simple necessity to being a tradition. Men obtained their power and they were reluctant to share it. It was still assumed that women were mostly involved in raising children and cooking. That was all we could do. Plus of royal succession was the crown from male to males keeping female children. Then the clergy started to assert that gender inequality was God's wish. And suddenly it became heresy for women to do things that men did. We didn't fight. We kept silence. We tried to get to empowerment in a peaceful way. And as a result, you can't open history books and see female geniuses there. They were raped. They were forced to bear a child after child. They were kept trapped at home, and they were economically dependent. We couldn't do music. We were forced to be wives instead. That's why we see Mozart's sister instead of Anna Maria Mozart, who was forced to get married by her father's order. We couldn't do physics because it was counted as heresy. That's why I wasn't touched about Albert Einstein's first wife, Mileva Maric, at school, who was collaborating with him. It is one of the biggest tragedies of our mankind. We lost all of the female geniuses who were never allowed to reach their potential and contribute their gifts to the world. Now let's move into 19th century. In France, Napoleon becomes emperor, and with him comes the Napoleonic Code. And this set of laws basically defines women as minors for life. According to it, I don't have the right to vote, to own land, to make decisions for my children. I'm obliged to live with my husband, and moreover, he has to take decisions about my life. Women were counted as property, as slaves, animals, and lands, property of their fathers, brothers, uncles, and eventually husbands. It was legal, and sometimes even encouraged for a husband to physically assault his wife. Tell me, if you'd rather be a man or a woman at those times. You might think that it was many years ago and everything has changed. Now let's move into 21st century. Saudi Arabia Human Rights Report in 2010. By law, a female raped victim is punished along with the rapist. The testimony of one man equals 2 women's testimonies. Women can take care of children if they don't live with men. And the most fascinating, every woman is supposed to have a guardian male with the authority to approve her decisions and actions. Incredible. We continue doing the same that we were doing 2 and 6 million years ago. But the reason of it at that time was biology. And the reason of it today is just a sexist tradition. Both ideas show the idea of women who can't make decisions even about their lives without someone. Patriarchy believes that women need, or indeed want, to be protected and taken care of. But what about the women who have no interest in doing that? What about the women who feel oppressed by men telling her what to do and what not to do? What about the women who do not need protecting? I defend, write for, and take care of my pets. I take them to the vet and make sure they stay in the house where they are safe. I get to make the decision because I'm bigger and stronger. I believe I'm right in getting the decision because I'm smarter and wiser than they are. Do you see where I'm heading with this? By assuming that women need to be protected and controlled, you're making the assumption that women are less than men. Because you are the one who knows what is good for me. I don't. As a teenage girl, I confirm that it impacts my life. Probably you don't really see it. Everything is just normal as it should be. And you don't understand why anyone would complain. You walk home alone at night, thinking about your next film project or whatever. Not about how to not get raped. Every single day we are told to cover up. We are free to enter lists with men. We are told not to talk to strangers. We are told to not walk alone at night. And we say we hear that because the society wants to protect us. But maybe the problem isn't in our clothes and behavior. If lesbians can control themselves when girls are wearing revealing clothes but men can't, then do you really think that the problem is in clothes? Maybe we just shouldn't find excuses, accept problems, and blame victims. Maybe we should fight against this injustice. Because we all know that there are no excuses for rapists. Let's continue fighting for the world where every person will be treated equally by the laws, by government, by businesses, where everyone will be judged as individuals, not as genders or sexes or by your race and sexuality. This is what feminism is about. If you support my ideology, you are a feminist. Let's be feminists. Let's build a society where neither men nor women, homosexual nor heterosexual, black nor white dominate over the other. We must never accept the world we love. We must always fight for a better tomorrow. We can't stop now, and in the past thousands of suffragists gave their lives for my and every girl's rights today. Women spoke, even if they wanted to silence them. They got together, even if they wanted to separate them. They fought for our rights today, even if they wanted to make them conform to the past. They got at the right to vote, the right to wear jeans and miniskirts, the right to equal pay, the right to be considered as a person in the eyes of the law, and the right to birth control. Of course, conservative men fought tooth and nail against changes. They declared birth control unnatural and ungodly. It was adventurous for them, but they didn't retreat, and they got it. So, are we supposed to stop now? There is still a long road ahead, and we will continue fighting for our future, that no one will ever be able to say again that our daughters are less than our sons, and our sons are less than our daughters. So dear men and women, fighting for gender equality isn't a personal propaganda against you. When we're talking about men, we are not talking about you. We aren't calling you a rapist. We have nothing personal against anyone. Our goal is to build a system where people will be able to live free of the stigma and gender roles. And when we, feminists, say that we want equal rights, we aren't talking about reducing men's rights. We aren't going to build a new matriarchal world. It isn't a solution. Yeah, you cannot support the patriarchy. Neither do I, because it's too big for any person or even a group of people. But we can chip away at it. Every time a girl in a village in Yemen persists in going to school, little chip is taken out of the patriarchy. Every time a woman runs for prime minister or president of her country, graduates from an elite university, writes a book, discovers a proof, is quoted as an authority at the news media, or successfully attains any other achievements formerly believed to be at the province of man, another little chip is taken out too. Every time a mother raises a child who believes that both genders have equal skills and abilities, another little chip is taken out too. Every time parents teach his son that No means no, and only yes means yes. A little chip is taken out. Every time the person doesn't make excuses for rapists, a little chip is taken out too. And every time a gay child comes to his or her parents and is greeted with love and acceptance, or every time you make people understand they cannot disagree with someone's gender identity or sexuality, another little chip is taken out too. The key thing is to know that we are part of multi-generational process that leads to a better world for women as well as men. The patriarchy is burden for everyone. Every chip out of it makes our world a better place. Thank you.
Нам треба зарядити. Нам треба зарядити камери.
Я витягую?
А?
Витягую?
Ні.
Дивись.
Давай я поки що поставлю свою на зарядку.
Зараз повинен на мобільний знімати. Тільки що вийшли.
Треба було ще GoPro брати.
Просто акумулятор. І в мене простіше.
Більше акумулятор.
Можна було просто брати іще декілька камер
Ага.
і міняти їх, коли на розгляд.
Before I start off, I want to ask you a question. Do you define yourself as good enough? Actually, you're not the first ones I've asked this, and you know what? The percentage of the negative responses was over 85%. No one truly has a clue about the reasons they consider themselves this way. Of course, you can try to disprove my words, but you can't disagree that we all didn't come to this world with the thought, I'm ugly, or I'm fat, or there is something wrong with me. A couple of months ago, I couldn't love myself. I felt like I could never live up to the perfect expectations, like I couldn't do anything to make a change and fit into society. Standing in front of the mirror, seeing and judging myself, the way I look, the way I think, the way I exist. I was extremely sensitive to every stressful situation in the past, because I couldn't take it under my control. But there was a thing I could keep in it, the amount of food I ate. And that's how I developed an eating disorder. Eating disorders are serious conditions related to persistent eating behaviors that negatively impact health, emotions, and the ability to function in important areas of life. They affect both girls and boys, all races and ethnicities. Doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, or where you come from, no one can be fully protected from it. And the exact cause of an eating disorder is unknown. However, there are some of the common factors that can be set as reasons, such as bad family relationship, bullying, social pressure, other mental illnesses, etc. The most common types of eating disorders are anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and binge eating disorder. I'm gonna be talking about the first one, so all of them are equal to the dangers they carry. Anorexia is the third most common and chronic illness which happen to have the highest mortality rate, as known as death rate. Many of the deaths that occur are by organ failure, but approximately half of the deaths are secondary to the suicide. The following question is, why? I mean, why 50% of teenage girls and almost 30% of teenage boys have been found to use restrictive methods of dieting in order to lose weight? Why are children increasingly becoming affected by diet culture and body shame? Why is there almost 120% increase in the last decade for the children under the age of 12 to be hospitalized for an eating disorder? And the most important, why out of the people that have been surveyed, up to 70% of those who admit to having experienced an eating disorder, but at some point they never seek treatment? So here we have a statistic where the illness has the highest death rate, along with the fact that many of those who had it admit that they never asked for help. Thinking about it and what I got through, I can't imagine my future child care about it as much as I did. I can't imagine them dieting the way I was. I don't want them to suffer. Looking back, I remember that all my childhood I was a happy kid who enjoyed playing, eating different food, wearing beautiful clothes. I was truly happy with my life. My memories about elementary school are the best ones, unlikely those I have about the middle and high school. That was where all got started and eventually got worse. My sister and my elder sister and my classmates began to use my body image to offend me whenever we had an argument. That was when I started to feel horrible about myself. My loved ones sometimes would tell me that I was chubby, or they were giving me nicknames such as Little Donut, Marshmallow, and so on. Thoughts of restricting in food slipped more often, and my self-esteem was going down really fast. As a kid, I couldn't find a better shelter than to become completely sick physically as I was mentally. By the 8th grade, I finally decided to lose the reason I was getting hate from, weight. I spent every single day locked in my room, exercising, reading different articles about dieting, and searching for the healthy recipes which I never cooked anyway. But just, what if I took a second to think about how many hours I've spent hating and critiquing my body? Now think about all of the time, the countless hours that I've spent doing these not productive things to my life and well-being. And think how many hours I could have put towards something that actually is beneficial to my life. So day by day I was lighter, and that went unnoticed because I tried my best to hide everything I did from those who surrounded me. I fooled not only my friends and parents, I primarily fooled myself. I refused to believe that my mind and eating were disordered. Therefore, I didn't need help, as I thought I didn't even deserve it. Time passed, and restrictions were getting tighter, and the first symptoms of the crazy lifestyle began to show. I felt weak, my period stopped, my hair started to fall out, my nails were blue, and I was always freezing. But the worst of all, I was in pain every single day because I couldn't say a word about my situation, because I was afraid and tired of judgment. I couldn't handle more of it. I slowly failed everything, friendship, sisterhood, daughterhood, but I never chose it. I never chose to harm myself and those around me. I never wanted to find that little illusion of comfort in suffering. I knew what to do, what to say, but it wasn't me. These were my rules that I blindly followed. Honestly, my eating disorder made me miss out a lot. It was a romanticized game in my mind that I turned into a reality. I refused to believe that my mind I was infatuated with the idea of becoming perfect and skinny, and nothing else mattered to me until I had an absolute control. But the goals I set for myself were never going to be enough. I didn't love myself as I promised, I didn't eat more as I wanted, and I became more lonely and isolated. I didn't have fun at all. I should have reached out for help earlier, even so it's never late to start. The main thing that I want to say here is that people shouldn't be ashamed that they have an eating disorder or any symptoms of mental illness. And they should never be embarrassed to tell about it people they trust, because the problem is never too small to bring up what bothers you. I know it's much easier said than done, but recovery is the only right key to heal your body and mind. People should open up about their emotions and feelings, because there is definitely a person they would feel comfortable talking about their mental health with. Parents, siblings, friends, therapists, or even a stranger. Following my personal experience, parents can educate themselves on eating disorders and be active in the recovery process. But perhaps the most crucial piece is simply showing their child love, support, and acceptance. Telling the child they're always worth it and always beautiful. That's how they can start loving themselves. And my eating disorder was just something I was going through, not the main focus of my life. Because there are so many things to live for, and there are so many things that can bring you happiness and joy. I went through a battle that taught me one simple thing: to love and appreciate everything I have. My appearance can't be perfect for everyone, but there are definitely people that adore me for who I am. All of us should start to take care of ourselves. And here is the thing that we can do to lower negative thoughts about our bodies and self-image. The case is that if you have a negative thought about those, I want you to replace that negative with 2 positives. For example, let's imagine that you woke up so swollen and you're like, no, I'm not going out today. My face is huge, I look horrible. Instead of this, I want you to say, I'm so thankful that I woke up today. I'm so thankful that my body gives me life, and I'm as beautiful as I always was and will always be. Because the person who matters the most for yourself is you. And yes, you are good enough, I am good enough, and we are good enough. Thank you.
Михайло? Да. Все, дякую. Розбуду.
Что зігріться, розсіш, що ми робимо? Про що ми розказуємо? Альтернативний живо.
Почекай, секунду.
Я накидаю,
А?
накидаю.
Ні, ще. Хай те зарядиться, бо в мене це.
Ти ж скрупно починаєш.
А?
Ти ж скрупно починаєш.
А я переведу тоді на загальний.
Кажеш, як закинути.
Окей. У мене, зараз скажу, 12%. Добре. Можеш. Зараз чекай, давай перевіримо звук. Ну, скажи що-небудь. Да, все чую.
Перевірка зв'язку.
Заходь туди, ставай навпроти букви Д. Можеш пішли.
Raise your hands. Oops. Raise your hands, those who have ever thought about what could have happened if all usual power sources, such as oil, coal, or something else, suddenly disappeared. Well, it sounds like a catastrophe film. Imagine a giant wasteland with ruins, no cars, no people are there. Somewhere over the world there are still wars for the last drops of oil, for the last pieces of coal. However, contrary to the expectations of many, most likely, the oil age will end. Just like there was a stone age, which lasted till all stones are over. Actually not. People use traditional fuels more and more every year, as the amount of transport and factories is growing. Oil as a fuel for personal cars may run out relatively soon, as gasoline rises in price and quality of alternatives improves. After all, this is not only about biofuels. Skype is also an alternative to oil, which is being burned by a person to come to a personal meeting by his or her car. Other vehicles, as airplanes, ships, and military transport, can last longer, even at a very high price, because oil is a very good storage of energy. But even when oil disappears as fuel, it will still remain an important economical element as a raw material for the chemical industry. And when and if even for this it will remain too few and into inaccessible places, it will remain in the ground underwater, so humanity will switch to other sources of energy and polymers. One of the best alternatives to fossils is solar panels. The efficiency of them was like 14% before recent times. Thanks to researches and modifications, it grew to 22%. It's still too low, but as you can see, totally possible to increase the efficiency of them. However, the main problem is not the low efficiency, but the way to contain the energy. First thing that comes to mind is battery. Battery is the easiest way to contain some amount of energy, sometimes very huge amount of this. Although batteries have some huge cons. First of all, their fragility. Usually batteries are effective and usable for like 3 or 5 years. Remember your new phone? For the first year it works awesome, remains charged for a long time, but the longer you use it, the worse it's working. Well, this is unacceptable for large-scale production and especially large-scale energetics. The second con is the batteries incredibly pollute the environment. Just imagine that a little battery, which fits, for example, a flashlight, pollutes 400 liters of water and 20 square meters of soil. Even though this is a serious problem, there is a possible solution of it. What if we store energy in the form of some kind of chemical raw material and convert it into electricity when needed? It was decided that energy could be stored in the form of chemical bonds to convert the sunlight energy in hydrogen. Maybe somebody has heard about hydrogen fuel. It was decided that energy could be stored in the form of chemical bonds to convert the sunlight energy in hydrogen. Maybe somebody has heard about hydrogen fuel. What's so good about it? First of all, hydrogen fuel can be used as a fuel for cars, planes, and other transport. It also can be used for space heating and to get electricity. Thus, hydrogen allows us to replace all the minerals that are used nowadays. Another alternative to oil is biofuel. Biofuel is a form of fuel made of animal or plant materials, or organic industrial waste. There are liquid biofuel, which is used in engines, solid biofuels, for example, firewood or pellets, and gas-like biofuel. About 60% of biofuels are its traditional forms, firewood pellets, for example, used for heating homes and cooking. They are used by 40% of the world's population. Actually, biofuel is pretty researched nowadays. It's one of the best candidates to replace traditional fuels. The United States Department of Energy studied seaweeds. They were grown in ponds with an area of 1,000 square meters. Productivity was very high. Just for information, 200,000 hectares of ponds can produce enough fuel for consumption of 5% of all US cars for a year. As you can see, biofuel is very prospective, but is still underdeveloped source of energy. Also, I wanted to tell you about atomic energetics. Probably many of you know that in 20th century, people were very excited for atomic energetics and everything what was connected to it. There were many things inspired by it, from comics and kids' toys to real science projects like a mini nuclear reactor as an engine for a plane or a car. By the way, these projects weren't forgotten or useless. Most modern submarines, military and icebreaker ships are powered by nuclear reactors. Sounds much less crazy now, right? Dreams about bright nuclear future were fallen, especially after Cold War, when people all over the world were scared of nuclear war every day since late 40s to early 80s. And after the Chernobyl nuclear power plant disaster in 1986. However, nuclear power plants are the most effective ways to gain energy in the world even today. Just to mention that in France, 76% of electricity is produced at nuclear power plants. This is very great, especially for those countries which doesn't have tons of fossils. Even more, atomic energetics is not the most dangerous and polluting ways to extract energy. Power plant itself isn't very hazardous if to store used radioactive materials correctly. The main problem of NPP, nuclear power plant, is vulnerability of them. Even if the lights went off for half an hour, it's an emergency situation which could lead to very serious consequences. Let's remember what happened to NPP Fukushima 1 in Japan. The earthquake and tsunami shock led to a complete blackout of the station. The reactors partially collapsed. There were a significant release of radioactive materials in the atmosphere, up to 20% of the emissions during the Chernobyl accident. There were not much casualties, So, if we want to replace oil with peaceful atom, we should make NPP as protected as only possible. And be responsible, of course. NPP are giving enough energy even as for today, so engineers should focus on reliability and safety of atomic energetics, not on productivity. This is what we need to do to ensure that NPP won't make a big boom. These were the most prospective and progressive alternatives for classic oil and other fossils. We should really think about it, because this is our future. Thanks for your attention, and be thoughtful about our environment.
Дякую. Камера одночасно вмикається. Ага, і супер. Зараз її покажеш. вже заходить. Що чекаємо? Добре. Тут пояс, чекай.
А на пояс?
Угу.
Що ти не знаєш, коли ти почекаєш, що ми саме зробимо?
Так, скажи що-небудь. Ага, чуть, да, нормально. 14% нормально вижить. Все, можеш йти.
Hi. Have you ever experienced sedation when somebody with a high status was mad at you? I think it happened to everyone at least once. Probably felt silly, confused, angry, disappointed that you had done something wrong, or the contrary, you didn't understand why you were a target of someone's anger. You sought support in the eyes of others, and you wanted to make an excuse of your actions, which were actually normal for you, but you failed to change the situation. I had such an experience too. A few months ago, my head teacher encouraged our class to take part in a language competition, but just a few people agreed to participate. She perceived that my classmates didn't want to participate because of their foolery. And I said, what is the nonsense here? Because my classmates have a low level of English, therefore they were afraid to try their hand at something new. Then she told me, well, of course, she solves everything here, and I think once in a while she's the main person here. After she went out blaming me for lots of things which I had not done, claiming that I was always dissatisfied with something and criticized everything. I felt devastated and depressed, crying and laughing at the same time. I and my classmates were confused. I tried not to make any movement. I couldn't say a word and felt like a victim about to be attacked by a predator. There were many thoughts in my head at that moment, but the main questions were, how should I behave right now? Why I can control my emotions, and why does she remind me about my mom? The next day she apologized for her sharp reaction and the tension a little bit weakened. Later I realized the thing that my head teacher and I have a low emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence? It's an ability to direct your emotions in the right way when you need to focus on something and not to be distracted. It is also the ability to communicate with the people, recognize our emotions, and the ability to understand the feelings of other people. The lessons of emotional intelligence are given to us by parents from early childhood. When 2-month-old baby wakes up at 3 a.m., his mother comes and feeds him during half an hour, while she looks at him dirtily and says how glad she is to see him, even in the middle of the night. The baby is happy that his mother loves him and falls asleep quietly again. This attitude towards the child is instilled from an early age, and the child realizes that he can trust people and be relied on, and they will notice his needs and their help can be counted on. Then in the kindergarten we help each other when someone cries, show our compassion and care, thereby developing our empathy. At school we get most lessons of emotional intelligence. When one of our classmates broke the glass and his friend stood up for him, but both got punished by a peer teacher. So in adult life we can't keep a balance, have healthy relationships, and be successful in our career without skills to identify our own emotions and the emotions of people. Emotional intelligence as a driver of success doesn't just apply to our personal life, it applies to the workplace also. People with the average IQs outperform those with the highest IQs 70% of the time. High emotional intelligence helps a person become more successful. After all, it helps you to better communicate with the people, easily recognize emotions, find an approach to everyone,
and guide people to solutions which are more important for you. In fact, there is a relation between emotions and heart disease. People who often get stressed at work at least once a month have a risk to take heart disease at the age of 50 or even earlier. But people who were seriously ill and not stressed and optimistic about further treatment lived on average 4 years longer than those who were stressed and had almost no support. So there are some ideas on how to control your emotions in several stages. When you have a stressful situation, at first you should label your emotion. What do you feel now? Are you nervous? Do you feel disappointed? Are you sad? Sometimes anger masks our real emotions like shame, embarrassment, frustration, and it's really important what's going on inside of you. Labeling how you feel can help you to take careful notes of those feelings are likely to affect your decisions. Then, reframe your thoughts. Your emotions affect the way you perceive events. If you feel anxious and your mother comes after a school parent meeting and says you to walk up to her, you might assume that she's going to quarrel you for bad grades. Or however, when you're feeling happy at the same situation, your first thought might be that you're going to be praised for your progress. So consider the emotional filter you're looking at the world through. Then reframe your thoughts to develop a more realistic view. Sometimes the easiest way to gain a different perspective is to take a step back and ask yourself, what would I say to a friend who had this problem? Answering this question will take some of the emotions out so you can think more rationally. But if you find yourself dwelling on negative things, you may need to change a channel in your brain. A quick physical activity like going for a walk, doing some sport, riding a bike can help you stop ruminating. Third, engage in a mood booster. Think of the things you do when you feel happy. Do those things when you're in a bad mood, and you will start to feel better. It can be everything that brings you pleasure, for example, going for a walk, meditation, growing plants, cooking, or talk with a friend. And the last, keep practicing. The more time and attention you spend on regulating your emotions, the mentally stronger you will become. You will gain a confidence in your ability to handle discomfort, while also knowing that you can make healthy choices that shift your mood. So to live longer, take care of your emotional condition, people around you, and be happy. Thank you.
Друзі, всім дякую, що приєдналися до нашого TED виступу. Дякую за увагу. Сподіваюсь, це було для вас пізнавально і ви зробили певні висновки. Скоро всі відео з'являться на нашому YouTube-каналі і ви зможете їх переглянути знову. Дякую за увагу і до зустрічі!